Mandukya Upanishad, Padamantra. Om Bhadram Karnevi Shrunuyama Deva Bhadram Pashe Maksha Bhirya Jatra Sthirairangai Stustuvagung Sastanuvihi Vyashema Deva Hitam Yadayuh Swasti na Indro Vriddhashava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti Nastakshyo Arishtanemi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. So we are moving towards the end, and you'll find that the verses are now slowly becoming repetitive. The ideas are getting repeated. The previous talk was on verse number 56, and that had meant that this world exists only for people. when somebody clings to causality, the existence of this world is for those who cling to causality. And the next verse, verse number 57, talks about Samvritya jayate sarvam shashvatam nasti tena vai sadbhaven yajam sarvam uchchedas tena nasti vai. It says that this entire universe is created by false knowledge, by ajnana. Therefore, nothing in it is eternal. Everything again, as one with ultimate reality, is unborn. Therefore, there is no such thing as destruction. Essentially, this verse number 57, from where we start today, it is talking about two layers of reality, popularly known as Paramartha Satta and Vyavaharik Satta, absolute truth and the relative truth. Now, before we embark on the explanation of this verse and the verses that are to come, let's have a look back. Let's see the grounds that we have covered in Vedanta. Now, before I continue, let me tell you of an incident which is much more than a reality check. We had a very learned and a great monk, Swami Vidyatmananji Maharaj. He was from America, a great monk. And he had written quite a few books. One of them is about a Yankee meets a monk, something like that. What religion is? It's a very famous work published by Advaita Ashram. Towards his end, he was at Graz, France, for decades. He had grown old and he was requesting the headquarters to send a monk. Usually, in all our foreign centers, the heads, whatever they're learning, whatever they're understanding, they're all Indians. So, our in charge monk, the head Swami, he jokingly asked Swami Vidyatmananji Maharaj that, look, you yourself are so learned, and there are so many learned monks in America. Why do you have to keep on asking for monks from India to head the center? And Vidyatmananji had famously replied, I'm quoting from extremely authentic sources, from the person who was given this reply. He said, what are you talking, Swamiji? It will take another 1,000 years for America to understand and appreciate Vedanta. Vedanta can be understood and appreciated only by an Indian. If you don't have a monk to spare, give us a junior monk, even give us a novice brahmachari. He will be far suited to lead the center than an American. You might find the answer quite shocking, and that too coming from an American. Now, this holds true for anyone who has not lived in India all his life. Unless you have taken Ganga Jal regularly, daily, and unless you have taken Tulsi leaves daily, difficult for you to grasp Vedanta. Actually, it's extremely difficult. I'm seeing some of our monks, my brother monks, kind of thing they are talking about Vedanta. Someone is making it a pop Vedanta. Someone is making it a popcorn Vedanta. Someone is making it's terrible. Recently, I had to scold one of our very popular Vedantic monks. What kind of things you are dishing out, parroting? Stop this nonsense. Now, where lies the problem? The problem lies the person who is listening to Vedanta and the person who is talking about Vedanta. If that person has slightest, even a slightest desire belonging to this world or hereafter, he cannot grasp Vedanta. Very strong comment, but absolutely correct. Not really, not really this statement, but there was a conversation with Malik and Sri Ramakrishna when he said, "I am not scared of being born again." And Sri Ramakrishna says, "Why don't you just admit that you still have desire to enjoy?" See, the moment you accept this world to be existing in whatever form, be it in the form of Visishtadvaita, be it in the form of Dvaita, be it in whatever form, call it this Vedanta, call it that Vedanta, unless you realize that this is all mithya, non-existent, know that your heart is beating with desires. If you're a monk, little less desire. If you're not a monk, full of desires. Very sound quite critical, sound very harsh. Nevertheless, it's the truth. Now, to understand Advaita, the easiest way to understand Advaita is to look at Sri Ramakrishna's life. I'm presenting before you a very simplified version of Sri Ramakrishna's life, biography. We are not looking at him as an incarnation. We are looking at him just as a person who was born at Kamarpukur, who grew at Kamarpukur, was practically unlettered as per the traditions of village life in those days. Because in those days, very few people studied. Sri Ramakrishna was barely lettered. He knew how to read, he knew how to write, but that was nothing. And then he came to Kolkata in search of a job. In spite of all the stories that we read from Leela Prasanga, that is great master, that he had this vision and he had that vision and he had this and he had that. The bottom line is that he came to Kolkata in search of a job, a poor Brahmin who was not able to maintain his family while staying at Kamarpukur. And this was repeated and reiterated when his own nephew, sister son Hridayaram, he was talking about this. And then Sri Ramakrishna says that, look, after all, you have left your home in search of money. It's only because of poverty that we are here. Sri Ramakrishna didn't say we, by we he meant him. The idea was that it's a truth and a fundamental fact. As a human being, as a person, Sri Ramakrishna and his relatives came to Kolkata, walking all the way from Kamarpukur in search of job, in search of pittance. And then being a priest, and a Brahmin priest. He was into rigors of caste habits. Till last, he never ate anything from a non Brahmin. Now, I'm mentioning it because it's very important for our discussion. And then, during puja, he started singing songs of Mother Kali and all. And slowly, he started questioning himself. Is this all real? Now, mind it. Presently, let's not look at Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation. Sri Ramakrishna, the devotee, Sri Ramakrishna, the sadhak, because even if he is an avatar, which he is acting as the perfect spiritual seeker. And that's how we have to see. So he is not questioning the world. He's not saying that the world is unreal. He's not saying that let us go to the God and let's pray to God for this and that. He came physically to Kolkata, walking all this distance, 70, 80 kilometers, maybe 100 kilometers, all the way, in search of how many rupees a month? Barely 10 rupees a month, which would be equivalent to something like 2 to 3,000 rupees, present today's value. And it was not enough to run his household. He was always under debt. And slowly he started going deep and deep and deep in Mother Kali. And then he had the vision of Mother Kali as the supreme consciousness. And then he started seeing things as consciousness. And he started seeing things, seeing Mother Kali as living embodiment who used to appear to him in different forms at different times in different places, mostly in and around Dakshineshwar. And then he went deeper into sadhana and he did Tantra sadhana, he did Vaishnava sadhana. And the supreme Godhead of all those ideals, all those systems revealed themselves to him. And finally came Advaita sadhana. And he refused. He was not willing in the sense that his mind was not going towards Advaita. And then Totapuri pierced his eyebrow with a glass piece and said, focus here. And his mind rushed. He said these words to the non-dual existence. And when his mind came back after 3 days, how did he see? He saw everything as Maya. And he also saw everything as consciousness. And he also saw everything as Mother Kali. Those of you who have studied Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna very thoroughly, you'll see that Sri Ramakrishna is talking about the reality of the world now as the world, as an illusion. Repeatedly he talks about illusion. This world is an illusion. He also talks about everything being pure consciousness, where there is just a superimposition. Some kind of superimposition that makes it look like it has some kind of reality, where he says that he's seeing the goat that is being sacrificed. He's seeing goat itself, goat being pure consciousness. And the sword too being the pure consciousness. So some kind of reality from this world continue to be with Sri Ramakrishna. But not always. When he was in Samadhi, he was seeing whole thing as mass of consciousness. And this is what he taught. What? When he was teaching to ordinary people, he was trying to teach them to come slightly above this mentality where they're deeply attached to this world. And there were devotees coming from various religious traditions, various denominations. He was teaching them those realities. And there were some few who were ready for Advaita, like Swami Vivekananda. And he taught them, these persons, like Swami Turiyanandaji and Swami Vivekananda and others, everything about Advaita Vedanta. And when Swami Vivekananda was not willing to accept that everything is Brahman, in the sense that he joked, he says, oh, this pot is Brahman, this thing. Sri Ramakrishna test him. And for next 3 days, Swami Vivekananda then Narendra Datta was in that altered state of consciousness where everything appeared to him as consciousness. The same that Sri Ramakrishna himself had experienced. Now, what do we get from all this? The most important thing that we realize that reality for a person, even if he be evolving spiritually, can appear at different layers. So for Sri Ramakrishna himself, the world was real, and slowly the world started becoming little less real. And from there, Mother Kali became everything. And then a time came when even Mother Kali vanished. And then everything else came back again. And yet, everything was false. Sri Ramakrishna himself says, right now I'm in that state where all forms are vanishing. Meaning, Mother Kali is vanishing away. He's talking in 83, 84 like that. That is 1 or 2 years before he gave up his body in Mahasamadhi. So what exactly happens? And why Advaita Vedanta is so difficult to grasp? My job is to teach, I am teaching you. I don't know how well you can grasp. Don't you mind? Because these talks are not meant for one-off listening. After 1 or 2 years, you should listen to every talk. Once again, the entire thing, and whole thing will get revived. The problem is that since our childhood, we have been trained to think of this world as having an objective reality. I am the subject, and this world has an objective reality. And when it comes to God, we get stuck up there too. And whatever we have learned from this world, we continue to think about God too. For example, just now we mentioned how Sri Ramakrishna continued with his caste habits, with his caste prejudices, but not at the ultimate level. Because ultimate level, he knew that consciousness alone exists. You will find it very interesting, this idea of Judgment Day. Those of you who are familiar with Christian traditions, etc., Judgment Day. What is a Judgment Day? Judgment Day is when God judges whether you will go to heaven or hell. Who judges? Judge. How? By getting evidences. Why? Because a judge doesn't know. If you have seen a person do something, will you need evidences? A judge needs evidence. Why? Because he was not there. He hasn't seen it with his own eyes. Do you mean to say that God is not ever present? Do you mean to say that God is not all knowing? And if Jesus or some other prophet intercedes on your behalf like a lawyer, why? Because this is how we have been trained to think of ourselves, of this world, and of everything in this world. And that is what we superimpose on God too. And most ideas in most of these scriptures, excepting Vedanta, that is Upanishads, you'll find that the great ideas that they talk about, like Judgment Day and all those things, they are simply laughable. Why? Because Sri Ramakrishna had said beautifully, if you eat a radish, you'll belch off radish. The world is so much inside you, the world is so much inside you that you will be belching off all the worldly things. And you will think that, for example, in India, Vedanta is often referred to by its critics as Mayavad. Vedanta is not Mayavad. Vedanta is Brahmavad. Vedanta believes that Brahman alone is real. So why Mayavad? This is the tricky part. So everything that Sri Ramakrishna was talking about, other than consciousness, belongs to Maya. What is Maya? It's inscrutable power, the ignorance that makes one appear as many. Today somebody was casually asking me about castes and varnas. And as usual, they will go to Purusuktam or Gita Chaturvarniya Maya system. Very good, fair enough. But even in an ordinary work, like say Purana, say our Srimad Bhagavatam, how do you find creation described? Brahma. And he thought of creation. And the first created beings were Sanak Sanandan, Sanatan, Sanat Kumar. He mentally created. And next, he mentally created those great sages who were responsible for the next generations. Two important things to be noted here is first, the creation itself was mental by Brahma. So maybe somewhere we are just a bubble in the thought of God, maybe. But more importantly, Brahma did not create people who belong to Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And that's what the Vedas say. In the beginning, there was only one caste, and slowly they got divided. Why? Because some people failed to live up to the higher standards. So they were made outcasts. Finished. And they went worse, further. See, now when you want to pull it up and then you try to push your caste ideas on God too, what can anybody say? But bottom line remains that it is some kind of illusion that God is beyond one and two. Brahma is one. Brahma thinks and he creates, and that creation is mental. Whether you call it projection or whatever you call, bottom line is that it's all mental thing. And yet it appears as multiple to us. There is multiplicity. Multiplicity is very much real. How do you reconcile these two things? The only way to reconcile is if you accept that this is some divine power of God. This is what was said earlier in the Mandukya Karika, that Brahman and Shakti, this is language of Shankaracharya, not of Sri Ramakrishna. The Otaprot, inextricably mixed the way in mud, soil, and water are mixed. So Advaita Vedanta cannot be Mayavad. And what about Sri Ramakrishna, who when came back from Samadhi, went all out to teach, say, Narendranath Swami Vivekananda? And he wanted Swami Vivekananda to do good to the world. What exactly meant by that? That till you are in Maya, till you are aware of your I consciousness, till you are aware of your mind, till you are not in the state of Samadhi, till you have a body and you have a body consciousness, this Maya is real. Continue working accordingly. And that's why Vedanta runs at two different levels. And there are two different layers of truth in Vedanta, Paramarthik and Vyavharik. How best to understand it? You see, very often we give the example of clay and dolls made out of clay, or gold and jewelry. But these are not very good examples, although Upanishads themselves use. The best example would be if you can think of a huge ocean where there are very, very small ripples. If you have not seen an ocean, just think of a pond, slightly large pond, and think of very small ripples, not even waves. Maybe a wave that is rising barely 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, not a meter. How will you look at those ripples? If you become tanmay, if you get totally absorbed in watching at the ripples, to you ripples may appear real. But if you have even the slightest awareness, you realize it's all pond, it's all water. It's only when you have huge waves that suddenly you start thinking of waves as separate from the ocean. The infinity of Brahman is something like that huge ocean where the existence of the individual, the existence of the universe is not even like a small ripple. And that's why person who is into Advaita, who has realized, who has seen, who has realized this oneness, realize that these ripples are nothing but pure consciousness. Depending on whether you are focusing on the ripples or on the ocean and the ripples or simply on water, you'll be talking about Vedanta, Vishishta Advaitavad, Advaitavad, Dvaitavad, etc. However, the moment you talk about Dvaitavad, Vishishta Dvaitavad, or any Bad, essentially you are focusing on the ripples. Essentially, you are admitting the reality of the mind. And if you are accepting the reality of mind, it only means that somewhere your desire to identify with yourself continues, which simply means that you are not an honest Vedantin. The moment you accept the reality of this world in any form, ultimate reality, I mean ultimate reality, in some form, you are not an honest Vedantin. Now that's a very strong statement coming from me because it ridicules the great acharyas that came after Shankara, who taught this Vedanta and that Vedanta. Well, the fact is fact. If they could criticize Shankaracharya, I definitely have a right to disagree with those persons. We had one great monk, Swami Tapasyananji. He at times attacked in his writing Shankara. So once I had asked one senior monk that why is revered Maharaj? Because Tapasyananji was a vice president and I was such a young monk. And it hurt me immensely. It hurt me immensely to see Swami Tapasyananji Maharaj being extremely critical of Shankaracharya. And then I heard two very interesting comments. One was that said that Swami Tapasyanji was worried that Ramakrishna Mission monks are talking too much about Advaita without understanding an iota of it. So he wanted that they should be kind of disciplined. And second was that he himself was from the land of Shankaracharya. And he found that most of those people, they talk about Advaita and Shankaracharya and feel proud of him without understanding anything. So he kind of went vehemently against that. Whatever it be, the bottom line is that even if you are becoming passionate about attacking Advaita, there's something wrong with you. And as Mandukya said, Advaita is not meant for the weak. The passionate people, whether they are into criticism or whatever it be, there's some kind of weakness. There's some kind of clinging to their mind. There's some kind of clinging to this world. There's some kind of desire in them. Desire to be famous, desire to be vengeful, or desire to be this and that. And that's why it becomes so difficult. Now, so difficult. How can we know? No, you cannot know. I cannot know. But me, you, we can take first steps. What are the first steps? Start reading the masters, not these pop speakers and pop writers, but the masters. You will not understand much, and that won't make any difference. And go to a teacher who really teaches Advaita, who understands Advaita, and who kind of lives the life of Advaita. Get inspired by him. Read more. Shravana Manana Nididhyasan. Listen, cogitate, think over it, and slowly make your mind go into it. Slowly you will start having a theoretical and minded theoretical perception of what Advaita Vedanta is. You might ask that, okay, today we have, I'm not sure, more than 50th lecture talk is going on. You will say that, do you mean to say that you have been wasting time listening to these talks? No. These talks are creating impressions, but those impressions are so mild, practically invisible marks, like a rhino being tickled by a pencil. But if you persist, slowly those marks will start becoming visible. And a time will come when these marks will no more be marks. They will like be the unleashed sword, extremely powerful sword that cuts through candles, waxes. Cut, 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 cut. Clear. And it clears. It just clears the illusions, the cobwebs that surround us, the underbush in which we are trapped. So if you think that in the beginning itself you will start thinking of Ishavashyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat, think of God himself becoming everything in this world. Can you think of God whom you have not seen, about whom you have no idea? No, you cannot. Tadavidhi pranipatena pari prashnena sevaya. We had a young monk here at the university. Now he's not here. So he had just joined and he was here maybe for 6 months or 1 year. And he was working on some academic thing, philosophy, etc. He asked me some question. I said, Shankaracharya has said something like this. No, he says, I will not accept you. So ultimately, one day I had to work very hard just to find out the quotation. I gave him the quotation. See, here Shankaracharya says this. Because it went against his academic thinking. That unsettled him. And from that day onward, I never talked to him about philosophy. Gossiping was okay with him, and I found that he was a perfect gossip. As an academician, well, the less said, the better. This is the problem. You have not sat at the feet of the masters. Acharya Shankar says beautifully, asampradaya with sarva shastra vedapi murkhavadev upekshiniya. A person may be knowing all the scriptures. He may be a great scholar. Treat him as a fool if he has not learned from the tradition. Where is the tradition? Vedanta has to be learned from the tradition. And slowly you get into it. As you get into it, slowly your mind starts resonating with the vibrations of Vedanta. You start growing. And finally, you reach that stage where your mind becomes completely one with the idea of Vedanta, but you have not reached the goal yet. Finally, the actual realization dawns upon you, the way it dawned upon Sri Ramakrishna. And then you realize, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Everything else is Maya. Everything else is an illusion. I alone exist. Now, before I continue further, that's a talk I wanted to deliver because after this, there will be lots of repetitive ideas here and it becomes quite easy. So maybe we won't get a chance. So now we have some time. In case you have any question based strictly on what I discussed today, you can ask. I'll give you as many minutes as you want. And if there's no sensible questions, I'll proceed. Please, based on the talk that I gave today, or maybe related to what I talked today, and only the questions that relate directly to you, to your problems, not technical things. Dear listeners, any question? Now, once I get into it, I'll not be getting deviated. No question? And I'm keeping the chat open for a minute and then I'll shut it. So, verse number 56 talked about that this world gets expanded only for persons who are who are identified with causality. Okay, Miss Indrani, I have a question to ask. Once I begin, I will not stop. Well, Indrani's question is beautiful. Brahman is a state. Brahman is not a state, Brahman is a reality. Brahman is the reality. You see, when mind doesn't exist, mind fully exists. Somebody has given you the wrong idea that mind does not. Mind fully exists, but not the way we understand of mind. So if mind exists, then is it not a pure nothingness? Why it should be pure nothingness? It becomes pure existence. I don't know where light of void. That's a strange term. Never heard of such a thing. God knows where from people are getting such idea. Light of void. How can void have light? Of course, persons like Stephen Hawking, they have been talking about black holes and that black. So Maya is Agyan, Renu Verma that's difference. All is Brahman. I first thing is I never said all is Brahman. Brahman is everything that appears to you. Maya never appears to you. Because Maya doesn't appear to you, so you cannot talk about Maya as an object. This pen appears to me. So in essence, its reality lies in being Brahman, with Brahman. This appears as pen because of Maya. But in fact, the next verse, Renu Vermaji, verse number 58, which we are going to cover, please remember this. They'll say, Sacha Maya na vidyate. Maya is that which does not exist. Now, we never say that pen does not exist. Pen fully exists. We are making use of this pen because of Maya. Yet, Maya does not exist. So, this question that Maya too is Brahman, no, this is invalid question. That's the problem. See, these things require a lot of discussion. Without that, it doesn't. Anyway, coming back to Indrani's question, this light of white. I've never heard of such expressions. And when you say pure existence, we have discussed in Mandukya Karika, in Kathopanishad, that just now we were discussing about objective reality. Please, if you listen very carefully, the idea will become clear. The idea of objective reality is ingrained in us since our childhood. And because there is an objective reality, to know objective reality, you need to have a subject. No doubt about it, such a simple thing. Now, Vedanta explains, Swami Tapasyananda said the right thing. I asked you to ask questions. I didn't ask you to judge me, okay? Maybe I'm sounding harsh. This is not the class where should be passing judgment on me and Shankaracharya. If you are there to pass judgment, please go to some other forum. Here I am there only to explain the ideas. And if you are saying that Tapasya has said the right thing, it simply means you didn't listen to my talk carefully. Now, please stop this discussion. I won't like to be deviated. Now, what Acharya Shankara says is a very simple thing, that whatever you may be aware of or not aware of, you are always aware of I-ness. Even a baby, newborn baby, is awareness of his or her I-ness in the form of hunger. It feels hungry and it cries. So I-ness is always there. That famous famous philosopher Descartes had said, "Cogito ergo cogito sum." I think, therefore I exist. So existence and thinking, they are linked. So the sense of the the idea that I exist, this cannot be denied. If you deny it, then there cannot be any discussion regarding anything. It's meaningless to discuss anything. The question is, how do you see yourself? This has been beautifully illustrated in the famous story of Indra and Virochan. Indra was the king of gods and Virochan was the king of Asuras. They both went to Prajapati to know the secret of Atman. And to make this story very simple, Prajapati said, "You are that." That is, I am that. I am Brahmasmi. And Virochan concluded, "This body is me." I said, "Let's eat, drink, and be merry." Indra also thought that, but after some time he had the doubts. And then slowly he thought that, no, this not this body, but prana, not prana, but mind, like that. And slowly, every time he went, Prajapati would ask him to sit, meditate, etc. And finally he realized that I am pure consciousness. How do you realize I am pure consciousness? Same Acharya Shankar explains that whenever I perceive this pen or any object, says we have two kind of vrittis, two kind of mindfulness, two kind of ideas coming simultaneously from any object that we perceive through our five senses or through memory. One is the existence of this pen, and second is existence. That is existence of this pen. Now, what happens if this pen is broken or destroyed? The consciousness associated with this pen, the idea of knowing this pen goes away. The existence of this pen goes away. But the idea of existence continues in this, say, microphone. And what if this microphone is also destroyed? All the microphones are destroyed. Even then, idea of existence continues in some other form. Bottom line is that if you continue with this and you destroy every object, then what remains? What remains? This is where Buddhists and Vedantins, they become different. They differ. One will say that it's all void. But the moment you say it's all void, who is saying that it's all void? I am saying it's all void. That means the sense of I-ness is continuing, sense of existence is continuing. You are contradicting yourself. What Vedanta says, what is there is there. Whatever is there is there. And what is there is cannot be expressed by words, because mind, the way we understand the working of mind, and Sri Ramakrishna says that pure mind that has become pure. What is purity? Where mind has no ripple. If you want to measure ocean, not under normal conditions, I'm saying, you have to measure the waves. But if there is no wave, how do you know the distance? Coleridge's famous poem, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Those of you who might have read that poem, water, water everywhere, nor a drop to drink. There he explains this. It was water had become totally calm. And you didn't know whether or not you are moving or not. I mean, of course, if you make use of the sun and the stars, maybe you can. But think of a fathomless ocean. Can you work out? No, you cannot. It's the ripples that make you think that whether or not you're moving. You need to have some relative objects. So, what Acharya Shankara says that this existence, because I had this sense of I, this I cannot be annihilated. And when there is nothing, no object, no mind, existence continues. And this existence is Brahman. Sat. He doesn't say Brahman, he says Sat. And you become aware only of that which exists. So that knowledge, Chit, and you love what you know. You love what exists. Ananda. This is Satchidananda. So Sat, Chit, and Ananda, these are one and the same. Interestingly, even if we let go of Shankaracharya, Sri Ramakrishna during his Nirvikalpa Samadhi experienced exactly this. And we have testimony of hundreds of saints who had this kind of experience. So we cannot question that. Where does the problem lie? Problem lies with I-ness. If somebody says, I want my I-ness to be there, in what form? I want to love God. I want to test God. Then what happens? Then Sat, Chit, Ananda, they do not become one. They do not become unutterable truths, but they become qualities of the Supreme, because mind continues. The moment I continues, mind continues. Mind the way we understand, howsoever pure. And so Vishishtadvaita becomes correct. And he doesn't care. Ramanuja doesn't care. Doesn't care for Advaita. He doesn't. It may be. Advaita may be the truth, but I don't care. And that's what very famously said. I want to taste sugar. I don't want to become sugar. So, will you say that dualism is not correct? It's fully correct. Vishishtadvaita fully correct. Why? Because Advaita is correct. These things we have discussed. Now, the idea of this void and light of void, God knows whosoever is coming up with such expressions, light of void, like Stephen Hawking saying, black holes aren't that black. No. If it's void, it's void. How can you have light? So I hope, Miss Indrani, I have made my idea clear. I have a question. Why do infants speak in third person? In the third person. The concept of I comes from later. So I have no idea. Do infants talk in third person? Well, because the sense of I-ness, I'm not very sure, because I have not interacted much with infants. I really do not know their psychology. It's because they consider themselves also as an object. As an object. But that proves I-ness. Because even when they are seeing their own body, themselves as an object, they're talking about he did it. So that sense of I-ness, I saw him do it. Sense of I continues. So, well, I hope any kind of religion. No, dear Taraknath ji, Advaita, no, Advaita spelling is wrong. Correct your spelling at least. Advaita. Advaita. Mr. Taraknath, every philosophy is ultimately manifestation of Advaita philosophy only. Because as we have discussed, and I request all dear listeners to listen to our earlier talks, where very clearly it says Advaita has no quarrel with any system of philosophy. Because the moment you accept that mind is there, the moment you accept Maya is there, automatically everything becomes real. Why? As many minds, so many philosophies. So there cannot be any quarrel with that. Can ignorance affect an enlightened person like Sri Ramakrishna? No. See, the problem is, Akshay Bhatia ji, your question is good. I mean, can ignorance affect an enlightened person like in Sri Ramakrishna's life once Totapuri became angry? See, the idea is, if you say Totapuri became angry, Sri Ramakrishna used to become angry like anything. And Swami Vivekananda's anger, you cannot imagine the kind of language he used. And Sri Ramakrishna, the kind of language he used with his own relatives. And Hriday Ram, his nephew, says, "Oh, Mama, I'm your nephew. Don't use this language." So he says, "So what?" But in case of us, our anger leaves a mark which makes us react again. In case of these enlightened persons, these marks are more like mark drawn by water on a floor. So their mark will be there for a while. Once water evaporates, there is no line. So these marks, these impressions, they do not create further actions or further, more importantly, birth or rebirth. No, they don't. So impressions, as we understand, they are not created by these emotions. But emotions will be there. Howsoever superficial, whenever you are in this world, your prejudices will be there, your habits will be there, your tastes will be there, your emotions will be there. Passions, no. Emotions, yes. There's a difference between passion and emotion. So let's have this first shlok at least. That's enough. I'm closing this window. संवृत्त्या जायते सर्वम शाश्वतम नास्ति तेन वै सद्भावे नियजम सर्वम उच्छेदस्तेन नास्ति वै. It's a very, very, very beautiful verse. Those of you who are extremely interested in Mandukya Karika and Vedanta should memorize this particular verse. That this entire universe is created by false knowledge. Now, staying within the realm of false knowledge, you cannot question this false knowledge. Naturally, you will ask me, how do I know this is all false? Because I trust my teachers the way you trusted your moms when you were kids. And my teachers, they trust Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna did not trust scriptures. He was scripture. He realized it. He saw the truth. So my acceptance of Advaita or whatever religious philosophy it be, because I don't have any realization and my theoretical understanding of Vedanta, or for that matter, any religious, spiritual matter, is quite meager, pretty meager. But I've learned from great masters. I know they were great. When I say false knowledge, etc., I'm being like a parrot. I'm just repeating those words. But I'm also struggling to reach that level. That's what it says. The entire universe is created by false knowledge. Therefore, nothing in it is eternal. In this world of Maya, nothing can be eternal. Nothing can be eternal. The moment that Supreme Brahman, that Supreme Consciousness, covered by this falseness of knowledge, appears, everything becomes non-eternal. Why? Because it's not here, it's nature. You might have friends, you might have relatives, whom you might have told at some point of time when that person was angry, when that person was hurt, when that person was depressed. Come on, it's not like you. You're a brave person. Your mom must have told you at some point of time, when you were, come on, my son is so brave. The idea is, if you go out of your nature, you will not be able to hold on for long. Once you come back to your nature, you'll be able to hold on as long as you wish. Brahman being the consciousness being Brahman being consciousness, and by its nature being infinite and pure consciousness and pure existence, the moment it appears in the realm of Maya as relative existence, limited knowledge and limited joy, it cannot stay there. and it cannot be permanent. So persons like me, you, and all who want to go back to our nature, we are struggling to study scriptures, we are struggling to meditate, we are struggling to go back. But what about others? How many people are religious? Of those religious, how many percent are spiritual? And of those spiritual persons, how many percentage are Vedantins? And of those Vedants, what percentage is Advaitin? 0.0001%. Maybe their time has come. It won't take long. For others, they're enjoying life. Let them enjoy. They want to enjoy the knowledge of Brahman in the form of academics, in the form of science. Some say science is my. You want to enjoy? Enjoy. Come on, nothing wrong with it. But after all, that knowledge is also Brahman. When you are enjoying the world, this, that of the world, you're enjoying the light of the world, the joy of the world. It's a limited joy. Someday you will get fed up. Someday you will say, no more. I read somewhere somebody had asked, if I become pure consciousness, if I become Atman, will I be able to enjoy movies and cricket? It's a very interesting thing. But why you have to be one with consciousness? You're already enjoying. No, why worry? You're already in your heaven. Why worry? Pure consciousness is not meant for you then. Well, so it says that everything again as one with ultimate reality is unborn. So this pain is never Brahman. This pain is not Brahman. If you take away its upadhi, the superimposition, that makes it appear like a pen. It's pure Brahman. But pain is not Brahman, mind it. It's pure existence that appears as limited pen. It appears, it's not. The transformation is not real. If the transformation been real, as in the case of gold and jewelry, transformation is real. In that case, you could have told that this is that. For example, sometimes you go to your home after long day at the office and say, whatever happened to that? Something that you had brought, milk or something. And someone in the family says, it has been used in this. Because the transformation is real. In case of Brahman and this pen, transformation is not real. So it's wrong to say that this is Brahman. Well, what about Sri Ramakrishna seeing those utensils during worship as consciousness? Absolutely true. People who have realized the truth, they can at times see that is a light of consciousness within this pen too. Every time you talk about pen, actually you're talking about limitedness. So it's absolutely wrong to talk about all is God, all is Brahman. Brahman alone is real. And everything that appears is Vacharammano vikaro namdeyam. Every vikar, every manifestation that you are seeing, these are just play of name and form. This is a bit difficult to grasp. But when you keep on listening, when you keep on thinking, when you start taking the first step, slowly the idea starts sinking. And as the idea starts sinking, things also start becoming more and more clear. So today we have crossed our time. Here the expression is samvritya. Samvritya means that the relative world that's there is extension. Essentially, this word says that truth is at two stages. It is layered. One is the absolute, on which there is the play of the relative. What we see as a world, what we see as the limited I, all this belong to Vyavharik, the relative. The Paramarthik, the absolute, it remains unchanged, unchangeable. Maybe we will continue from here only in the next talk. Thank you so much. Shanti, Shanti.